So for this card, we're going to combine a bunch of the techniques that we've already covered. So we're going to use some ink pads to do a bit of a blending technique in the back. We're also going to use markers right on the paper in combination with that technique. And then we're going to use the markers right on the stamp to do the image on the front of the card. So very first step, and I'm only actually using the red and the dark charcoal for using the markers on the background. I didn't want to have a green background or too much green in the background, but I did want to tie in a little bit of some of the image colors. So I'm just putting a little scribble of each one, and that's enough. I don't really want it to go too far in because I don't want it to interfere too much with the image. So now I'm taking my dye pads here and I'm smushing them on my surface. Obviously you can't see them because I have a black mat here that I'm working on. So then I'm going to mist the ink pad ink, and then I'm going to dip this in. I'm going to dry it a little bit and then dip it a couple times just to get some really nice texture in the background. So you want to see some water droplets when you add the water to your table there or to your surface. And if you've got a spot that's not wet yet, that hasn't been wet down, just dip it into the water. And now I'm going to dry it slightly. If I were to just keep it dry, keep dipping it in the water, I would just keep blending the inks. By drying it, I'm setting some of the inks, and by setting I mean if I were to douse it with water it would still move, but I'm going to layer the inks on top of each other and just get a more dimensional look and a little bit more, you have a little bit more control when you dry the inks in between. If I were to just keep dabbing it and moving it, I would just be blending and smearing it, and I wouldn't really be adding some extra texture to it. It would be fairly one-dimensional. So this doesn't need to be completely dry for the next layer. About 75% is good. And pretty much everything is dry other than the top here and that little drip there, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do, instead of just dipping it over and tapping it in the exact same space and whatnot on here, I'm just going to move it this way. So I get some of the colors mixed a little bit. Tap in the center. You see how you get some dots by doing that? Just adds a little bit more texture, a little bit more dimension. And same as before, if there's a darker area that you don't really like how much is there, you can simply take a piece of paper towel, tap where that excess is, and just lift it up. All right, that is good enough. I'm gonna dip it probably just one more last time. There we go. I think I'm gonna put a little bit up there. Maybe a little bit in there. There we go. Liking how that's looking. So now I'm gonna dry it completely 100%. And I'm just going to pause the camera so that you don't have to watch the whole. All right, our ink is completely dry. I'm going to take a paper towel and clean my surface off here. I don't want any ink residue over there in case I happen to dip something or tap something over there. So now we're going to do the same direct to stamp method as the first iris card. So you can see that I am taking my marker and I tend to go from where I want it to be the darkest and then kind of feather up a little bit. I try not to get harsh lines on it. And I'm also using the side of my marker. I'm not using the tip. The side is going to cover a lot more area. And it's also going to be a little bit less damaging to your marker. And these markers, if you do a lot of this and are really, really heavy-handed with it, you will start to see your marker start to degrade over time because it's the tips of these are not really great quality. So I tend to actually save this technique when I have markers that are starting to get to the end of their life, because it's a great way to get more use out of them. So now I'm taking my dark charcoal here, putting a little bit of black in the center of that poppy, and once again I'm going from where I want that black the darkest, and I'm kind of feathering out. There we go. And then a little bit of green. Once again, same as last time, I do the light one first. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying not to overlap with the other colors. I don't want to contaminate my marker by doing this. I'm just trying to get the color down, so I tend to start where there is a different color and then move away from it so that I don't accidentally go like this into it. There we go. And then same as before, I do my darker color basically where there would be a shadow, so under flowers, where things go behind other things, and then from the bottom up. Underneath leaves, that sort of thing. One of these things that is very, very forgiving, so you don't have to be too worried about it. So now I'm going to mist my stamp a couple times, and then I'm going to stamp it. Before doing that, make sure you've checked out your background and you've decided where you're wanting to stamp it. I'm going to stamp it like this because I want my flowers up in this light open space there. But you can see how exactly the same colors, the same technique, you get completely different backgrounds, and that's part of the thing I love about this technique is you never know exactly what you're going to get. So mist it. And then let's stamp. And I like to hold it, make sure it's firmly in place, and then press around to make sure that that stamp gets good contact with the paper. And then lift it up. Love that. Once again, there's a ton of ink still here. We're going to do one more card after this, and we're going to use this excess ink for that. So this needs to be dried once again with the drying tool. Now if you found it too busy with the red that we added along the outside, you could eliminate that completely and just do the ink pads or whatever, but I just wanted to see the colors kind of incorporated into the background, and I liked the way it looked. But it's not for everybody. Some people might just find that it's a little bit too much, it's a little bit too busy. And I do love the way it looked, but I cannot understand how for some people it might be a little bit too much, a little bit too busy. Everyone is different, so. But it's fun to learn these different things, and it kind of sparks your imagination on what you can do. All right, that's probably dry enough. Yeah. And let's go glue everything to the card. Once again, everything is already pre-cut. Edge there from cutting. I should have trimmed it better, but we're just gonna go with it. And then lastly, our image piece. And once again, we're gonna need to hold this down with our acrylic block and our little jar of weights. I do have a die cut here. Rather than stamping something on here, I didn't think stamping would show up. I thought it would be a little bit too messy and a little bit, probably wouldn't be as bold as a die cut. So I just die cut the word love in black so that it shows up really nice. You could use whatever die cut you want, and if you didn't want to put anything on the front, you could just put it on the inside of the card. There we go. Make sure that this is all on there perfectly before we put our weight down. And there you go, and that will dry nice and flat, just like this one here. But just a fun little way to combine all the different techniques that we've been learning in the last few videos.